Hey guys, welcome to today's stream. I'm going to give everybody a moment to join because I've just sent the link in the Discord. So just bear with us for 2 moments and then we will jump straight in. Welcome guys, welcome. Okay, perfect. Let's get started. So welcome guys to today's session. This is, if you haven't been to this session before, it's kind of our bird's eye overview into who we are at DarwineX Zero and what we're about. It's a very, like I say, bird's eye view in. So we don't go into too much depth on certain things like the risk engine or some of the more complex things, that goes on here at DarwineX Zero, because we have a dedicated session on Thursdays that I run every single week at 4 p.m. on Thursdays, where we go into the more complex measures. And I try and schedule these sessions every week so that we have kind of the basic overview on the Tuesday. We then go into strategy development as a trader on a Wednesday, and then we go into the more complex stuff on a Thursday, just so that you guys get that full experience every week of kind of understanding exactly what you get here at DarwineX. Juan Pablo, hello. Welcome to the session, dude. Appreciate you dropping a comment. As we go through the session, if you do have any questions or anything that you want to discuss, please just pop it in the chat, whether you're watching it on X or YouTube. The chats will come through on StreamYard, and I will try and answer your questions there and then. If it's not relevant to what I'm talking about at that time, I'll just finish what I'm saying, and then I will answer the questions. So welcome, guys. Anyway, my name is Kieran. I'm head of UK growth and business development here at Darwinex and Darwinex Zero. And if you haven't heard of Darwinex before, we are an FCA regulated asset manager, broker, and hedge fund. We actually hold we're regulated in 3 separate jurisdictions. So we're regulated in the UK by the FCA, regulated in Spain by the CNMV, and we're also regulated in the Seychelles by the FSA. And we're currently on track to get our SISEC license in Cyprus soon as well. We have over $100 million invested in the platform as of right now, and we have over 10,000 active strategies on both Darwinex and Darwinex Zero. Our job as a business and as a company is to find the best trading talent on the market, raise investor capital, and provide a synergistic relationship between both traders and investors, where the more investors come to the platform, the more our AUM increases, and the more that capital gets dispersed between our traders. Our only 2 goals: find the best traders, raise as much capital. Jay Sid, hello, mate. Fast becoming my favorite YouTuber. I wouldn't class myself as a YouTuber just yet, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you turning up to all the sessions. Makes it worthwhile, and at least makes it feel like I'm actually talking to real people behind the screens. Otherwise, it's just me looking at my webcam, and I always say it feels a bit weird, feels a bit strange. So when people are more engaged, more active, makes these sessions way more enjoyable for me. So what is DarwineX Zero? Now, DarwineX Zero is the only place that you can become a professional asset manager with zero risk. And I say zero risk for multiple reasons. The first reason, of course, is monetary risk. Your maximum downside is your 38 euros per month subscription. Of course, there's contingencies, whether you have upgrades or you pay a yearly or 3 yearly, but your maximum downside. You don't have to put any money into a brokerage account. You haven't got to worry about a black swan event that wipes out your broker account or slippage on real funds. So there's zero risk to you financially as a trader. There's also zero risk of you having to go and do extra work. So if you're trying to raise capital for your own fund or raise capital for your own trading, you're going to have to become licensed and regulated. You may have to get certain qualifications as well, depending on where you're located in the world. In the UK, it's an absolute nightmare because the FCA are really hot on, shutting down investment scams and trying to manage all the stuff that goes on in this industry that we won't spend too much time talking about because it's dark and boring. And there's also zero risk of you having to go out and network with investors because we have the Darwinex Investor Marketplace. As long as you perform well, investors will see your track record and they can allocate capital to you without you actually having to go out and network with them. So you don't have to find an investor. You don't have to pitch yourself as a trader or your record or your strategy. The investor can see it from a statistical perspective and decide whether they want to allocate capital to you. So for an introverted trader, it's the dream, right? Your performance speaks for itself and you don't have to go and sell yourself. Number two, Darwinex allows you to develop as a trader using our advanced strategy insights. This was massively overseen by many traders for a long, long time until I started doing the strategy development sessions on a Wednesday, which are, if you haven't been to one of them, they are fantastic sessions. They usually run for an hour to an hour and 15, 20 minutes sometimes. And what I do is I go over a trader's record live. So we load up somebody's Darwin and we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking at all the different variables that trader might not have investigated before to try and boost their performance. A lot of it is kind of me just spouting out ideas, but what it does is it allows you as the trader listening to think, I've never investigated that before. I've been too focused on the charts, for example. Now, if I look from a data perspective, I know certain things that I can take and improve moving forward. So those sessions are really, really good. Like I say, Wednesday at 4 p.m. UK time, that's when we run them on a weekly basis. So make sure you attend one or watch one of our previous sessions, because we have on the live tab on YouTube, we have hundreds of previous live sessions that all put there for you to go back and watch. So we have some really good ones, and I highly, highly suggest you going back and watching them. Our interests are 100% aligned from business to from B2C, so business to customer. We want all of our clients and all of our traders to become the best versions of themselves, because we want to allocate our own capital and investor capital to you through our hedge fund and through our investor marketplace. We need to, and we want to find the best traders that are out there. If we don't do that, we don't survive as a business, because we don't profit off of trader failures. We need good traders to invest real capital into. Without those traders, our investors won't get a return. Without the investors getting a return, they'll look elsewhere. For our hedge fund also, if we're not getting a return, the hedge fund basically dies. So our interests are 100% aligned with our traders, and therefore we want you to advance as much as you possibly can. We will give you as much as we can from kind of a business perspective to help you grow, to help you prosper, and to make the most out of your trading career. And lastly, we have a fantastic community of like-minded traders. I feel like Darwinex is a place, and coming from a trader background myself, Darwinex is a place that when you get it, you get it. And when you embrace Darwinex and Darwinex Zero, you understand, you become a part of us as a business, right? You know that this is a long-term game. There's no shortcuts. There's no easy routes. It's all about how much effort and hard work you put in. There's no getting lucky, especially when you're building a track record. And the key thing that you have to do is to stay consistent, to stay dedicated, and to focus on that long-term goal. Being in our Discord, where there's roughly 11,000 members or just shy of, it's a great place to be. You get all your questions answered pretty much straight away. We have like a first line of support in there, which are our other community members. You know, if you ever come in and ask a question, it's likely to get answered quicker than I can get to the Discord. But if you ever just want to be around traders who are, you know, not Lambo boys and not looking to get rich quick, then it's just a fantastic place to hang out, because you will meet some great, great traders. To give you an oversight of how the system works from, again, a very bird's eye perspective, we have a trader that signs up or begins trading with Darwinex. They can choose to trade with a live account on our FCA regulated broker Darwinex, which would mean they would have to deposit their own capital. They get all the same benefits as somebody from Darwinex Zero. It's just dependent on how you want to pay for the service. You can either pay a monthly subscription at Zero, or you can pay with broker commissions at Darwinex. Makes no difference to us. We just want our clients to have the best experience, which is why we give both options. So you can sign up with Darwinex or Darwinex Zero. With Zero, you would get a virtual account of either $100,000 or $1 million, depending on the account type that you choose or the asset type that you choose. You would receive a MetaTrader 4 or 5 account, unless you're trading through interactive brokers through Darwinex, but we'll keep that aside for now. Now, the key difference here is that we have built something called our risk engine, which is a piece of proprietary software that reads your risk and your exposure as a trader, and it will adjust your trades to the same risk level or the same volatility level as the S&P 500, which is a value at risk of 6.5%. Then you will get a Darwin created, which is effectively an index of your trades with our risk engine. So you have the trades that you take, the Darwinex risk management placed together and you get your Darwin. Effectively, the way that the S&P is an index of the top 500 companies in the US, your Darwin is an index of your trades plus our risk management. And that goes both ways. If you're a low risk trader, you might find yourself getting scaled up at Darwin level. So on both of my portfolios I have running on Darwinex Zero, I actually get scaled up because I risk so little. If you're a high risk trader and you place big positions, day in, day out, then you might find that your risk gets tuned down. So whilst you might have doubled your Signal account or your MetaTrader account balance, your Darwin might only be up 5 or 10% because it's scaled you down because you take too much risk. The Darwin is what the AUM goes to. It's where your investors put capital. It's where we put capital, and it's where our hedge fund would put capital. So the index, which is our hedge fund at Darwinex, you have investor capital as well. We have DarwinIA seed capital, which is our monthly leaderboard, which I'll get onto in a moment. And you can have your permanent allocations, which all get held at Darwin level. You then get paid performance fees from any new high watermark highs that you make on any of this capital. I can just see a question from PXX Lou. During the calibration phase, is the risk engine multiplier already active, or does it remain constant until calibration is finished? Fantastic question. So during the calibration phase, that's the period of time. In fact, if I move on to the next slide, this will answer your question. So this is kind of the roadmap to becoming a professional asset manager, not a calibration trader. So this is the roadmap to becoming a professional asset manager, which starts with the calibration phase. It's not a pass or fail assessment. It's just a period of time, roughly 3 weeks, depending on your trading style. It can be slightly longer, but usually it is about 3 weeks time. This is for our risk engine to understand how you trade and to read how much exposure you take per position. We use a metric called deleverage, which we have knowledge-based articles about. So if you want to read up on deleverage or how the risk engine actually interprets your volatility or your exposure, I would recommend going in watching one of my Thursday sessions, the Darwin explanation sessions, or having a read on our K-Base. K-Base is the best place to go, but I understand sometimes that reading articles is boring as hell. So, I'm always here to have a call or answer any questions, but the K-Base should be your first port of call. Anyway, calibration phase lasts roughly 3 weeks, and the risk engine judges your behavior. After you've hit the requirements, which is your trading days and trading decisions, the risk engine will repackage that and your Darwin will go live on the following Monday. Then it will have your risk adjusted metrics on the following Monday. JC just said, just completed calibration, got a Darwin risk of 0.34. So yeah, so your value at risk is roughly, 15%, maybe slightly higher. 0.34 isn't too bad. There's no good or bad risk multiplier. Happy with that. Yeah. What I generally find is the majority of discretionary traders or less frequent traders have a lower risk multiplier because they generally risk more per trade, which is fine. But if you're an algo trader like me, or if you have a portfolio where you're running multiple strategies that are at super low risk, generally you find that you get scaled up because you're risking so little at master level. Now, once your Darwin is created, you go on to the next 2 ladders of this. So it's kind of like you open up the next 2 rungs on this ladder. You have your permanent allocations, which is pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. It's an allocation to your Darwin that lasts indefinitely. 100,000 euros. And you can choose a growth target. I'll get onto the growth targets versus instant in a moment because I don't want to overwhelm you with information straight away. But it's effectively 100,000 euros that will not be lost from your account. So even if you're going to draw down or you take a year to make a payout, for example, you won't ever lose that unless you cancel your account with Darwinex. It's as simple as that. The next rung on the ladder is our DarwinIA program, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a monthly seed allocation program. It runs like a monthly leaderboard, so everybody at Darwinex is competing in either DarwinIA Silver or DarwinIA Gold. Gold is kind of reserved for the traders who've hit certain performance milestones, whereas Silver is where everybody else is. I think currently is about 8,900 traders in DarwinIA Silver. In Silver, the leaderboard, I can't even talk. I keep drinking this. I'm coming off a sore throat. I've been really ill recently. I don't know why I keep going through this. But anyway, DarwinIA Silver is run as a monthly leaderboard. You get a rating based on your current month's return, your previous 5 months return, and your previous 6 months drawdown. So effectively what we're doing is taking a six-month snapshot of your performance and giving you a rating for that. Any trader with a rating above 75 will receive an allocation in that month, meaning that they can then be earning performance fees moving forward. Sorry, again, it's all this talking to myself in front of my screens drives my throat out. So any trader who gets a rating of 75 or above is guaranteed an allocation. And those allocations range from 30,000 euros all the way up to 375,000 euros. And they last for 3 months. So for example, let's say at the end of August, I get allocated 30,000 euros. I will then have that for September, October, and November. At the end of November, that allocation will drop off. However, these are cumulative. So you can keep earning them on top of each other each month. So technically, you don't ever have to lose all of your allocations because, and I'll show you an example right now. This is one of my Darwins, one of my accounts. You see, it's currently got 100,000 euros in allocation. If we scroll down on here. So you see the first month that I was trading with this account after calibration phase, I was allocated with 40,000. The next month I got an additional 30,000, which put me to 70,000 euros overall. Then I got an additional 30,000, putting me to 100,000 euros, which I've got currently. Now at the end of this month, 40,000 will drop off. So I'll go back down to 60,000. However, based on my current rating down here, so my current rating is 91.11. So I'll get an additional 60,000 euros. So at the end of this month, even though my May allocation will drop off, I'm actually increasing my DarwinIA allocation by 20,000 euros because I'm losing 40, gaining 60. So it's not as if, oh, well, you'll lose your allocations and you won't make money again. It's not like that at all. As long as you keep performing, you can keep stacking your allocations. Now, where it gets interesting is when you get promoted to DarwinIA Gold. So to do this, you have to hit a few performance milestones. So you need a minimum track record length of 8 months. You have to have made a 20% return and have a minimum drawdown to return ratio of 2.5. Now, that effectively means if you have a max drawdown of 10%, then your return would need to be 25%. So 2.5 times the max drawdown amount. I think for the 20% return you need for gold, it's like 8% or 8.3% drawdown or something like that would be the absolute limit. When you get to gold status, which roughly is about 300 traders right now, maybe slightly more. We're starting to see this pick up. We're starting to see a lot more traders coming to gold each month now, which is fantastic. When you get into gold, A, you're open to investors, which I'll touch on in a moment. But B, the allocations get much bigger and they last for a lot longer. So instead of lasting for 3 months, they now start lasting for 6 months. And they go from 50,000 euros all the way up to 500,000 euros instead of 30 to 375. The great thing about DarwinIA Gold is the leaderboard is much more simple. It's not based on 6 months performance. It's based on the current month's return. So even if you had a bad month last month, you could still win DarwinIA Gold next month and get that #1 spot on the 500,000 euros because it's only based on your current month's return. So whoever is #1 has the highest return for this month. So August, #2, second highest return, and so on and so forth. And again, all the way up to 500,000 euros. But the real exciting part of this is that you're now open to investors. So your Darwin is then available on the investor marketplace at Darwinex, meaning that an investor can look at your performance, compare it to everybody else and say, I'm going to allocate X amount of capital to this trader based on their previous track record over the past 8 months, for example. That's the real exciting thing here because you start to begin attracting real live capital. There's actual capital that's held in a real account that is managed technically by yourself. Of course, it's at Darwin level, so it does have our risk management still, the way that all the Darwins do, but you're still a certified asset manager at that point because you have and are trading with real live investor capital through a regulated benchmark. We have Anprop here because We have proprietary capital here at Darwinex, and we use it for the first phase of allocating traders in our hedge fund. So what we do, we have a few million set aside for our prop account, which essentially we take traders who come into gold and we allocate them small amounts of capital. And we kind of test the waters. We see how the traders respond. We see how they react to having capital. Because what we've seen historically is that sometimes a trader might have a perfect track record, especially through zero, where there's no skin in the game. As soon as you allocate them, even a small amount like $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, the trader all of a sudden gets a weird complex and starts taking trades that they never would have took before they had real investor capital. So this is kind of the first testing ground for then what is the last step on the ladder, which is the Darwinex fund or the index. I feel like I should update that label to say index, which is our in-house hedge fund. This is where we allocate a lot more of our capital to traders, and we try and scale up our traders as fast as we possibly can. Now we're fast approaching $3 million in AUM at the index, which I think we're at like 2.9 million. We've just increased the limit to 4 million, and we will start increasing the limit as more AUM comes into the hedge fund. I think the hedge fund has roughly like a $50 million alpha cap, but we're going to slowly scale to that for a few different reasons. But basically just so that we know that the infrastructure can manage larger amounts of capital over time. The great thing with this is the more capital that comes in, the more capital that goes out to you guys as the traders. And that's kind of the ultimate goal here, is because it's a fair distribution of capital to our traders, because you don't have to have an investor specifically pick you out of all of the traders on the platform, because if you're performing well, you'll be included in the index regardless. Again, quick water break. I'm going to read a couple of questions. JC said was around 15%, then it spiked to around 18% after that copy trade fiasco last week. I think it'll raise to about 0.38, 0.4 over the next few months, but happy with 0.34. Didn't want it any higher. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is what it is as well. This is what I say to a lot of people is like, don't be too bothered or too concerned. I go into much more detail in the Thursday sessions, JC, as you know, on kind of your VAR and your risk multiplier. But a low risk multiplier or a high risk multiplier doesn't mean you're a good or a bad trader. It just means mathematically you operate at this level of exposure, this level of value at risk, and we need to adjust you to this level, which is our level. It's our benchmark. So we're not saying that you're a good or bad trader, but we're saying this is the benchmark of what we can give to investors. And so I sometimes say, like, it's not even worth, thinking about. Just trade as best as you can. PX Lou said, I was just asking, since my first trade in Darwinex was over leveraged because I was still figuring things out. It ended in a big loss. Would it be better to restart this early rather than try to recover? I'm still in calibration. Talk to me. Tell me how big of a loss it was, because if it was like a couple of percent, I wouldn't really be worried about it. If it was like 20, 30, 40%, then yeah, maybe restarting's your best bet. But just use this as a lesson in future. Just to you don't have to risk a lot, or you don't have to over leverage yourself, because your Darwin is risk adjusted anyway. So even if you're risking a lot on your MetaTrader, your Darwin's not going to be. So whether you're risking a lot or a little, your Darwin will always come out of this the same result. No, it was more or less really small. Yeah, if it's small, I wouldn't be too concerned. It is what it is. If it is like going to damage your record moving forward, as in like a 30-40% drawdown, and therefore you're going to be scaled down massively, then I'd be a little bit more concerned. Okay, so 0.3% loss. But after I figured things out, my losses were now 0.1%. So I was thinking, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I've had bad trades where I've enabled a new strategy in my portfolio and I've got the risk wrong and it's lost more than it should and stuff like that. And you just bounce back. Just don't worry about it. Like, just carry on doing what you're doing. It's not going to affect anything long term. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. I also have like all of my strategies. I think currently got about 15 on XAQP, which was the Darwin I brought up earlier. They all risk different amounts per trade anyway. So some of them might risk $50, some of them might risk $150. So there's all the losses, kind of different values. So I just, It just is what it is. I wouldn't be too concerned. So to just recap the different phases then. So we have the calibration phase, which is when the trader signs up and starts trading for Darwinex. It takes roughly 3 weeks. And then afterwards, your Darwin becomes eligible for allocations. A question that we get a lot about this is whether your performance does or does not qualify for your track record during the calibration phase. It absolutely does. So anything that you do in calibration will be represented when you go live, as in when your Darwin is created, and it will count towards your rating and therefore future allocations. So don't think that the calibration is kind of a period that gets forgotten. It absolutely counts as part of your track record. Of course, has to be risk adjusted. Then we have DarwinIA Silver and Gold, which is 2 different levels to the seed allocation program. It's run as a monthly competition in the style of a leaderboard, and it works in addition to permanent allocations. So as I mentioned, the ratings-based leaderboard for DarwinIA Silver is your current month's return, your previous 5 months return, and your maximum drawdown over the past 6 months. Then the permanent allocations. Sorry, I just wanted to mention actually. And then DarwinIA Gold, just so that you guys remember, it's based on your current month's return. So you don't have this rating leaderboard. It's based on whoever's made the highest return for this month. PX Lou, no problem. I hope I answered your question anyway. Permanent allocation is completely optional. This goes for boosters as well, which we haven't done much of a push on. However, we're starting the marketing for boosters in September, so you'll be hearing a lot more about boosters very, very soon. But this kind of goes for both of them. So they're completely optional. You don't have to have them. We're just trying to give you as much to make your experience with Darwinex as fruitful as it possibly can be. So again, it's an optional add-on. With a permanent allocation, you can choose a specific growth target, or you can choose to have it instantly activated on your account. The boosters have multiple options, so you can choose them for certain time periods and for certain amounts of capital. And then for the permanent allocation, it's 100,000 euros that is allocated permanently on your account. So you can see here the different growth targets for the permanent allocation. So we have the 0%, which is the instant allocation, the 5, 10, 15, and 20%, which would be the growth targets. What that growth target means is that if you choose the 10%, for example, once you've activated that, you need to make 10% before you start earning hot performance fees on the permanent allocation. So kind of similar to a prop challenge, if you will, where you have that phase first. However, we have the instant option where it'll be allocated straight towards you. So Stone's asking, on what basis am I going to get the allocation silver? So that's based on it's based on your rating each month. So it's ran as a monthly competition. I'm going to briefly cover this for you because if you've missed, I did cover this, but if you missed that part of the session, of course, you won't be aware. So DarwinIA Silver is run as a monthly competition. You get a rating in that competition based on these 3 factors, which is your current month's return, previous 5 months return, and previous 6 months drawdown. Any Darwin with a rating above 75 will at least get a 30,000 euro allocation for the next 3 months. The higher your rating, the higher the amount of allocation that you have, and it goes all the way up to 375,000 euros for the number 1 spot. Those allocations will last for 3 months, but they are cumulative, meaning month on month, if you keep performing, you can keep adding allocations to your pot. Hope that answers your question, Stone. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions as well. What we also do, not a lot of people actually realize that we facilitate, is the transition from Zero to Darwinex. So if at any point you decide that you don't want to pay a monthly subscription anymore, or that you would rather just trade with Darwinex through our broker, what we will do is we will take your track record that you built with your simulated account, and then we will transpose that to your new live account over at Darwinex. There's a bit of work that has to go on behind the scenes, because if you're going from trading $100,000 simulated account through Zero, and then you open up a £10,000 account, with Darwinex, of course, we need to adjust those metrics on the back end. But what we do is we do that over a weekend, so that by come the next week, you have your new account, which still keeps the track record and the history of your trading from your DarwinX Zero account. Completely optional. Again, it's just another way to pay for the service. Instead of paying for the monthly subscription, you would be paying in brokerage commissions, the same as if you were to trade at IG, IC Markets, CMC, any other broker out there. But it saves you on your monthly subscriptions. There's no difference in the product, or the infrastructure, or the tech is the same. You will receive the same DarwinIA allocations and investor capital. You know, the goal remains the same, the vision remains the same. Like I say, it's just a different way to pay for the infrastructure here at Darwinex. Again, just to mention, although I go into much more details on these statistics in tomorrow's session, we look over a lot of sort of P&L performance statistics. We look over your assets and your timeframes. I do some really interesting stuff around these sorts of variables and how they affect a trader's performance. And we look into your strategy as well, just so that you can get a deep dive into how you trade, if there's any low-hanging fruits that you could take advantage of to, you know, either make more out of your winners or to lose less from your losers, whatever it may be. But we give you loads of metrics on the platform for you to look through. But like I say, if you're struggling with that, or you don't really know how to interpret the data, attend one of our strategy development sessions on a Wednesday at 4 p.m. UK time, or go on our YouTube and watch some of our old ones. And then finally, just before we finish, I've added this in, even though we go into much more detail on Thursday's session about this, I've added this in just so that you're aware. This is a chart that you get on your strategy analysis tab, if I remember right, which is your VAR chart. This is the backbone of Darwinex, and this is effectively how we risk adjust your strategy. So if you remember, I said earlier on, we adjust your risk or your VAR to 6.5%, which is the same as the S&P 500. This shows your live VAR on your MetaTrader account. So you can see, well, for this example, we've put a big fat white line and said 6.5%. That won't be there on your chart. But just for ease of viewing on this example, you can see at the beginning, the trade is getting scaled down because they're above 6.5%. As they cross 6.5%, they'll be at a 1-to-1 risk multiplier. As they keep going down, the trader will then actually be scaled up, meaning their Darwin will be trading larger size than their MetaTrader. Again, I do go into much more detail on this on Thursday. So if that's fairly confusing, which it may be if it's the first time that you're hearing about it, I would highly recommend watching one of our previous Darwin explanation sessions, or coming back on Thursday at 4 p.m. UK time, and I go over it in much more detail. So finally, I just want to ask if anybody has any questions. This is a perfect time to put them in. I can see Stone has asked, after I finish my calibration phase, so I've got to trade for 3 months and build a proper return to get a rating, then it will be allocated. No. You get your rating straight away. So as soon as your Darwin is out of the calibration phase, you will receive your rating. So let's say your Darwin was created this week. Okay. So Monday this week, then you will have your rating. You will be included in August's DarwinIA. Okay. So you will be fighting for an allocation this month. If you didn't get one this month, you'll be in next month's. So you'll then build your rating throughout September. At the end of September, if you're above 75, you'll get an allocation. For example, I will bring mine up again because I don't think you would have been in the session when I shared this earlier. I began trading this account at the very end of April. I think it was like the 27th or 28th of April. So I didn't get an allocation because I was still in calibration phase. You can see my Darwin was created on the 24th of May. So the very end of May. I then got allocated at the end of May, or at the start of June, I should say. And then had allocation since, and we'll get another allocation next month. So even though my initial 40,000 will drop off at the start of, well, next week, I'll be adding another 60,000 as it stands right now. Might be slightly higher now. No, 60,000. Because they're cumulative, and like I say, they stack up. So you don't have to trade for 3 months before you get an allocation. It can be a week after your Darwin's created. It can be a month after your Darwin's created. It could be 3 months after. All depends on your performance and your rating. Clear, thank you. Awesome, Stone. I hope I answered your question without too much fluff anyway. Awesome, guys. Well, I don't think there's any more questions, so we'll call it an end of the session. Now. I apologize for my throat, my cough, my water. As I said, I'm coming over a bit of a sore throat, so talking for a long period of time is quite a struggle at the moment. However, I appreciate every single one of you joining these sessions. As always, thank you all for putting your questions in the chat. Like I say, I much prefer it when you guys are here interacting with me. Otherwise, I'm just a man chatting to a camera. Jay said, perfect. Thanks for that good session. Awesome, dude. again, JC, I appreciate you turning up to these sessions on a regular basis too. It's always nice that you guys take time out of your day to listen to me ramble on. But with that, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you're based in the world. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. UK time for the strategy development session, so don't miss that if you want to figure out some of the variables that you can take a look at to improve your system. With that, guys, peace out. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.